overall, looking at our banking system, could you say today here in the Senate that you believe, as Chairman of the Federal Reserve, that our banking system is stable and capitally strong?
Our banking system is well capitalized. It came in with strong capital. We are watching the situation very carefully. My concerns have turned less on the solvency of these institutions and more on their ability to extend the credit that our economy needs to keep growing, because in many cases banks are deleveraging or shrinking or reluctant to raise the extra capital needed to take advantage of business opportunities. So that's more my concern than solvency concerns. I would like to revise and extend my remarks from March of 2007. The issue was that the subprime crisis triggered a much broader retreat from credit and risk-taking, which has affected not just subprime lending, but a wide variety of credit instruments, and that's why it's become a much bigger element in the situation than frankly, that I anticipated at that time. The housing market is still under considerable stress. The construction is still declining. I do believe that we'll start to see stabilization in the construction of homes, new homes, somewhere later this year, beginning of next year. And that will be a benefit because the slowing construction pattern has been subtracting about 1 percentage point from the growth of the GDP going back now for some time. So that will be a benefit. House prices may continue to fall longer than that because of the large inventories of unsold homes that we still face. And I would have to say that there's uncertainty about exactly what the equilibrium level that house prices will reach. And unfortunately, it's that uncertainty, I think, which is generating a lot of the stress and risk aversion we're seeing in financial markets. It's for that reason, the need to find a footing, to find stability in the housing market, that I do think that action by this Congress to support the housing market through strengthening the GSEs and FHA and so on is of vital importance.
Well, many of us believe we need to pursue market speculation now as a critical element of helping to drive down particularly gas prices. Let me ask you this. There is one thing that's squarely within your realm, and that is the question of a weaker dollar. In 2000, we ran a budget surplus. Ever since then, the federal government has been running up larger budget deficits. We added to that a $1.6 trillion tax cut and a $700 billion war that would generally contribute to larger budget deficits. And if you look at that and you look at the twin deficits of both trade and the budget, in combination you have a low and with a low domestic savings rate, you have all of the makings of a weakening dollar. In 2002, the barrel of oil cost $23 and 23 euros. Now it costs, well, Chairman had even a higher figure than I had. I had 145 and 90 euros. I'm sure it just changed overnight. Do you agree with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and others that the weakening dollar has contributed to the higher price of oil as an elemental part of our challenge?
I do agree, and I said so in my testimony. It should be noted that the decline in the dollar from 2002 reversed an appreciation of the dollar that took place from the early 90s until that point, and it's related to the dynamics of our trade deficit, as you alluded to. In the late 90s and early 2000s, strong capital inflows drove the dollar up, but that made us less competitive and created a trade deficit. Some of that had to be unwound to bring us back towards a more better balance of trade, and in fact we have been seeing considerable improvement in our balance of trade as the dollar reversed that increase. But we also import a lot of oil, and because we import it when oil prices rise, that also works in the other direction. It tends to hurt the dollar. So there's really causality going in both directions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
You talked about the long-term oil supplies are down. I believe that's what you said.
Well, not rising.
And is that domestically, worldwide, or both?
Well, certainly oil supplies are declining in the United States. Worldwide, they've been relatively flat.
Okay. Senator Menendez talked about the dollar and the value it has on oil. Does a budget deficit have any effect on the value of the dollar?
Perhaps a weak effect, but I don't think it's a first-order effect. The linkage between the budget deficit and the trade deficit is there because the trade deficit does reflect our national savings and investment imbalance. But empirically, the effect is relatively weak under most circumstances.
And the dollar is devalued by about 40%. Is that correct over the last four or 5 years?
No, I think it's more like 25%. And again, it has reversed a considerable appreciation prior to that peak in 2002.
Are you comfortable where the dollar's value is now?
I'm looking for the economy to strengthen next year, and as it does, I think that will support a strong dollar going forward.
Do you anticipate it? Okay, that's fine. Is there anything that you see on the horizon that could impact the credit rating for the Treasury?
No, I don't. In the very long term, or even the medium term, we need to address these large issues of entitlements and the aging population, and that's tremendous challenges involved there. I don't think anything in the next short period of time, including issues related to the GSEs, for example, would affect the credit rating. That's my understanding, for example, based on statements that some credit raters have made.
And we'll get into this in the next panel, but what you're saying is that even if we don't do anything with the bill that's being proposed on the GSEs, you don't think that could have any negative impact on the credit rating?
If we don't do anything?
If we don't do anything, we just let it play out?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it would, no.
Okay. You'd stated earlier in your testimony that the housing is really kind of the root of what we're seeing, the housing contraction. We've heard figures of 150 banks potentially going down because I assume of this adjustment that you're just kind of talking about. Do you guys have any projections on what kind of impact banking institutions going down, how many there potentially could be in the next year, or do you not want to comment on that?
I think I would just refer you to Chairman Bayer's list and discussion from last couple of days. We don't have a projection.
How many are on that list?
About 95, as I recall.
Okay. I understand there are new accounting rules that will shortly be enacted that will require much more recognition of off-balance sheet activities. Have you looked at the fully diluted value of the balance sheets, and you still make that assessment?
I don't think we've done a full assessment. I think that those rules are yet to be clarified, and I think it may well be some time before they are enacted. At such time, we'll obviously think hard about how it affects those ratios.